You had all those yellow, I'm guessing they were planes around America, and within a couple of seconds, it just slowly died out. These people stepped in to help 7,000 people. I think they said something along the lines of double the amount of people that are in their little community. I mean, the terrorist attack happened, and you don't know who's operating these other planes. You don't know who's safe and who's not. I love what the mayor said. When they first arrived, they were strangers. Day 2 or 3, they became our friends. And then by the time it was time for them to leave, they were family. So yesterday I checked out the video Boat Lift 9/11. And it was a really moving story. I loved it how people gathered together in time of need and helped each other out. And so I got a few requests to check out another video called The Story of Operation Yellow Ribbon. So let's dive straight into it.
The 20th anniversary of the September 11 attacks is understandably a time of deep sadness as the world remembers an act of evil that's still hard to believe. But for some, it's also a chance to celebrate the opposite: kindness, compassion, and the very best of humanity. In the mayhem of the day that saw terror raining from the skies, American airspace was shut down, and a tiny town in a remote part of northeastern Canada suddenly found itself the destination for commercial passenger aircraft ordered to land immediately. 7,000 plain people with nowhere else to go were about to discover the delights of the wonderful community of Gander.
Wow.
Rugged and remote, the Canadian island of Newfoundland is as sparse as it is spectacular. As far east as it's possible to get on the continent of North America, it's the last frontier before the expanse of the North Atlantic Ocean. It's here you find Gander, a sleepy town with a big heart. 20 years ago, this quirky community became the most unlikely hero of the terror attacks of September 11.
At the time of the greatest evil, we saw an outpouring of unbelievable humanity.
We're really lucky, and we know it.
5 or 6 days that have stayed with you for the rest of your lives.
Yes.
It all began on that unforgettable, unthinkable September day. As the realisation dawned that hijacked passenger planes were being used as weapons of mass destruction.
We're shutting the airplanes down. We're not letting anyone go right now.
Air traffic controllers scrambled to shut down US airspace for the first time in history, as yet another plane hit.
We're putting blast up on everything. There's a second plane that just hit the World Trade Center.
More than 4,000 aircraft were ordered to turn around or land as quickly as possible. For international flights caught over the Atlantic, there was no turning back. Hundreds were rerouted to Canada, including United Airlines Flight 929, with Australians Ian and Julia Campbell on board.
We noticed the aircraft was descending, and the captain came on eventually and told everybody that there'd been an incident in the United States and we were being diverted to Gander.
Newfoundland, where great airships roar across the runways at Gander Field, gateway to the Western world.
Gander Airport was once the largest on Earth, a base for Allied aircraft during the Second World War and the main testing site for Concorde. By 2001, its glory days had long since gone. But that day, over the space of 3 extraordinary hours, the planes just kept coming.
When we were landing, there were people lined up by the side of the airport, and they were just kind of clinging onto the cyclone fence.
They were out there. I'll never forget it. People were standing on the bonnets of their cars.
Yeah.
They were taking photos. That's when we realised that, there's something
more than
really big going on.
38 commercial airliners with 7,000 passengers, landed in quick succession. For locals who'd flocked to the airport in droves, it was an unforgettable sight.
Every plane that we had was treated as a bomb, so they had to stay at the tarmac. People weren't allowed off or anything. So it was probably 7 or 8 hours. In 9 hours, we realized that, hey, those people aren't going anywhere soon.
With the influx of unexpected guests, in a few short hours, Gander's population almost doubled, setting a Herculean challenge for the mayor at the time, Claude Elliott. Being the mayor, you're the big boss in town, right? So...
Yeah, well, so they say.
And you had a lot of logistics to deal with. How, were you pulling your hair out at this stage going, how am I meant to feed these people, house these people, look after these people?
I had my job to do, and I didn't have to worry about people not being looked after. I knew the people in my community would take care of all it.
Julia and Ian's Boeing 777 was the 22nd plane to land in Gander. They would spend the next 26 tortuous hours on the tarmac, some of the last on Earth to learn of the terror attacks from radio reports fed through the plane's audio system.
We had received a report through our communication lines that what would appear to be maybe a terrorist activity or hijacking has occurred.
It was quite horrific to hear it being piped in and just listening to the events as they unfold there in New York and elsewhere.
We were just grief-stricken, just as the rest of the world obviously had been earlier in the day.
As they finally emerged into the Gander sunshine, the scale of what was going on finally hit them.
It wasn't until you actually got to the bottom of the stairs and then you did the 360 and looked around at these huge aircraft all around you. That to me was just, something I'll never forget.
The passengers filed into the airport terminal, hungry, exhausted, and full of uncertainty.
At the time, it was quite scary, and it was a lot of trepidation and anxiety because we just didn't know what was going to happen to us.
We didn't really know what the future held.
The passengers, fondly known as the Plane People, came from 95 different countries, from all walks of life. Some didn't speak English. Others had never heard of Canada, let alone Gander. All were immediately welcomed by a special brand of Newfoundland compassion.
I guess the biggest challenge for the plane people, they were just wondering if this was real, or are those people setting us up? Are they going to rob us, or what are they going to do? Because most of them had never experienced the kindness and generosity that they were receiving.
Chicken and beef and turkey and ham.
By now, an operation of military precision was in full swing. With Gander overflowing, communities close by pitched in. In the tiny village of Gambo, at the Salvation Army Church, Teresa Antonetti was getting ready for the challenge of a lifetime.
I remember getting the call saying, you have to get our church ready for 198 passengers.
And what was your reaction in that moment?
Where do I begin?
Like their fellow passengers, Ian and Julia had to leave their luggage behind, so had little more than the clothes on their backs.
We were taken to Salvation Army Church, which is to be our refuge for the next 5 days.
And there were double beds waiting.
Oh, yes.
Double beds.
Five-star accommodation. Actually, it was 5-star, really.
Like every other available space in the area, Gambo's church became a massive dormitory. The men slept on the pews, the women in military camp beds. But Gambo Church was much more than just board and lodging.
I felt they just needed somebody to be there for them. They just needed a friendly smile. They just needed a welcoming face.
The Plane People may have been complete strangers, but to the Gander community, they were simply people in need.
We had 9,300 people living in town, and I would venture to say that 6,000 of them was volunteering at something. When that all came together, what seemed like a monumental task was really not.
Did you get much sleep though that week?
I never went home for 5 days.
For a tiny community, the numbers were huge. Not only beds for 7,000, but 285,000 meals. The ingenuity was also outsized, with even their precious ice hockey rink transformed.
At the time, the ice was on the rink, and we said, well, let's use that as a refrigerator, and we stored all the food on the rink. I always say we had the largest walk-in refrigerator in Newfoundland.
Or perhaps anywhere.
Yeah, probably.
For a community nearly 2,000 kilometres from New York, the terror strikes felt so much closer when two of their visitors shared news of the loss of their son.
We had a couple there in Gander that had a son who was a firefighter in New York. They found his body in the stairwell. So, you know, that was very emotional. All of a sudden, those people were like family to you. And not only did they have a tragic loss, but the community felt a great sense of loss.
And already stranded far from home, Julia and Ian also had their own shocking news to deal with. Ian and Julia Campbell were stranded in Newfoundland when, in the midst of the trauma of the 9/11 attacks, they got news their son Hamish was in trouble on a surfing holiday.
We had found out that our son, who was in Indonesia at the time, had a staph infection, and he had been told by the doctors in Indonesia that his foot should be amputated.
Not a time when you want to be in one of the most remote places on the planet.
No.
I was devastated. Not only were they dealing with everything that was happening in New York City and being in this small town that they knew nothing about, now they had their own things to deal with.
Teresa Antonetti, who ran the Salvation Army Church, turned out to be their angel, helping them coordinate an airlift for their son.
We did manage to get Hamish flown back to Sydney, and he managed to, have his foot saved. We're really grateful.
You still feel that?
Yeah, very much so.
That keenly?
Yeah. Yep.
For all the Plain people, there was much stress and anxiety. But over 5 days of heartwarming hospitality, the people of Gander and Gambo not only nurtured, but also entertained. Forging deep friendships and bonds before it was finally time to go.
On the first day, we had 7,000 strangers. On the third day, we had 7,000 friends. And on the fifth day, we lost 7,000 family members. That's how close we became to those people.
It was a very emotional time saying goodbye to each other, because we obviously had come to know these people very, very closely, and it was a sad time to say goodbye.
Now living in Ottawa, Teresa hasn't been back to Gambo's church for the best part of 2 decades.
Wow, nothing has changed in 20 years, really.
Why was it so easy? Why did it come so naturally to you and your community to help these people, these absolute strangers?
That's the only way we know how to be. We didn't even give it a second thought. We just went into work mode and we did it.
And this is Teresa.
Yeah.
The lovely Teresa who took care of everybody.
Yes.
To Ian and Julia, Teresa epitomises the care and compassion of the Newfoundland people. But it's Teresa who is grateful.
The whole experience that week, it was such a reward for us to be able to show people in need really what we could do for them and how we could help.
Teresa has not seen Ian and Julia since that last farewell. Would you like to see them again?
Absolutely.
But today, thanks to a little technology, they have the next best thing. Well, I found 2 of your friends, just hiding here.
Hi, Teresa.
Hello, wonderful lady. How are you?
You were amazing. You know how much we appreciated everything you did. And we miss you. And honestly, if we're going to desperately try to get back there next year.
Does that surprise you after 20 years that those feelings are still so strong?
No. It was such a strong feeling at the time that it's impossible for it to go away. And to this day, whenever I see anything or I hear anything from any of the passengers, you could feel the tugging on the heartstrings again.
And next to it is a town called Gander. There's a 2-person police department,
An elementary school.
An SPCA, a local TV station.
And a hockey rink.
it's a small place on a giant rock in the ocean.
Such is the power of the Gander story. It's been turned into a smash musical that's wowed here and around the world. A celebration of the very best of humanity in the midst of the very worst. For former Mayor Claude Elliott, it's a time his community can never forget. When you speak to the people who experience the kindness and compassion of the Gander community, Gander will always have a precious place in their heart. How was Gander ultimately affected by the plain people?
I think the one thing that we've learned from it is never take what you have for granted, because you never know what might happen.
Well, it's hard to believe that it's been 20 years.
For Ian and Julia and the other plain people, it was an unexpected twist of fate that took them to a faraway land. An experience that left an indelible mark for the very best of reasons. One that has lasted a lifetime.
I think perhaps we've been inspired by our experience. We've been inspired to perhaps lift our game and be kinder to other people too, kinder to strangers, and that was what was given to us.
Thank you, Gander and Gambo.
Yeah. The warm-hearted kindness of these unbelievable people was amazing.
What a story. What a story. So many similarities to the story that I watched yesterday about the boat lift. People in need and others willing to do everything to help. Just mind-blowing. Such a small community called Gander that welcomed people in. We are one, we're all in this together. People willing to help. I mean, they housed them, they fed them, they turned that ice rink into a refrigerator. You know, these people were stranded. Such a massive event took place in the world, and these people stepped in to help 7,000 people. I think they said something along the lines of double the amount of people that are in their little community. Even what I said yesterday, there are good people in this world. That Mayor Teresa, who helped them and who were the organisers. And I love what the mayor said. He said when they first arrived, they were strangers. Day 2 or 3, they became our friends. And then by the time it was time for them to leave, they were family. And that resonates with me, because there's been certain events that I've been to that when you are amongst other people, even if they are strangers, you can grow really, really deep bonds. Those 7,000 people were hurting, let alone the situation that they were in. And it was a space for them to feel loved, feel comfort, and to know things are all right. And that's what I really took away from that. I found really fascinating at the start how you had all those yellow, I'm guessing they were planes around America, and within a couple of seconds, it just slowly died out, which is crazy to even think about, because I mean that the terrorist attack happened and you don't know who's operating these other planes, you don't know who's safe and who's not. So obviously higher ranked people made all these planes have to land. It just puts into perspective how big that day was for the people on the boat, for the people in Gander, for just every American, how big the day of 9/11 was. And as much as it's a very sad day, I feel that after watching these last 2 videos, it was also a time for the nation to be unified. That's what I saw.